Mr. President.
Senator from West Virginia.
Mr. President, I rise today, as I have for the past few weeks, to bring stories of basically the opioid crisis that we have throughout my state and your beautiful state of North Carolina and all over this country. And this epidemic is something that we have to face because it affects every person in America right now. There's not a person that I know of, and not anybody I believe in America doesn't know somebody in their immediate family, extended family, or close friend that hasn't been affected by prescription drug abuse or illicit drug abuse. I've been dealing with this since my days as governor of the great state of West Virginia. And as you know, it's ravaged my state. We've been hit harder than any other state in the country. Drug overdose have soared by over 700% since 1999. Just last year alone, we lost over 600 West Virginians to these are legal prescription drugs. They're made legally in the country by a legal manufacturing of pharmaceuticals. They're basically approved by the Food and Drug Administration, a federal agency supposed to be looking out for our well-being. They're being prescribed by the most trusted person next to our family members as our doctors, and they're killing us. But our state's not unique in that it's hit everybody. 51 Americans are dying every day. Every day. We've lost over 200,000 Americans. 200,000 Americans have died since 1999. When you think about that, of epidemic proportions, we're talking about Zika. We just put $1.1 billion towards the Zika. We spent $500 million on Ebola. All these horrible epidemics that can do devastation to America will rise up and face. We haven't done a thing in this line. And we need a serious culture change to get the root of the problem. And we need to change the approval of the opiate drugs. Basically, FDA does not need to be putting out these powerful drugs. We don't need them. When you think about the United States of America, there's less than 5% of the world population lives in our great country. We consume over 80% of the opiates produced in the world. How do we become the most addicted? How do we become so intolerant to pain that we have to have the most powerful drugs ever produced? So we have to treat the way we look at this drug coming to the market. Also, Mr. President, probably like yourself, 10, 20 years ago, anybody that did drugs, I thought they committed a crime. Put them in jail. We've spent over $500 billion in the last 2 decades incarcerating people for nonviolent crimes. They come out as bad as they went in. We didn't cure anything. So I said, we got to change. We're looking at sentencing guideline changes different. A nonviolent crime, non-sexual, nonviolent crime. Most addicts create thievery. It's a theft. It's larceny. And that's where they get their sentencing from. So they get sentenced. They get a criminal record. Can't get a job. They're out of the market. My state of West Virginia has the lowest workforce participation. There's only 3 things that take you out of the workforce if you're an adult. One is you have a record, an incarceration record, people won't hire you. Either you have a lack of skill sets or you're addicted and you can't pass a drug test, or a combination of those 3. So something's going on. We got people that we can't fill jobs. People are telling me how bad the economy is. Then I talk to the workers or the employers, said we can't get people to pass a drug test. Can't get people into the marketplace. So it's something we have to do. My office continues to get flooded, Mr. President. I get letters from all over the country now because I invite that. Let me read your letter. Let's put a face, let's put a family, and it's not just a hardship, it's just not poverty. This is basically every walk of life of America. And they're writing stories, so I want to read another story to you right now. This is Carolyn's story. This is the grandmother writing to me. She says, "Dear Senator Manchin, I'm enclosing a copy of the letter I sent to the Journal in Martinsburg, West Virginia, concerning the death of our son's stepdaughter. She died of heroin overdose. I consider myself Devon's grandmother, and at my age, words are my best weapon to fight the scourge that killed her. Please, Senator, read my letter and then use it in any way you see fit in the fight for passage of Jesse's Law," which we talked about Jesse's Law, and I think you've been helpful in that, and I appreciate it very much. It's basically just saying, if you go to the hospital and you know your child or a loved one in your family is addicted, and the child is trying to overcome the addiction, then the hospital has a responsibility to stamp on their record addiction, so they'll be watching how they discharge them and the type of opiates they give them. You can't reaffirm an addiction by giving them more pills. So this is what we're fighting against. And she says, our granddaughter Devin, that tall, exuberant redhead who laughed her way into our hearts, is now a statistic. Several days ago, our son called us to tell us that she had died the night before from a heroin overdose. It wasn't her first overdose by far, but the other time someone had always managed to get her to the hospital. The last time the friend shooting up with her couldn't help. He died at her side. She still held the needle in her hand that killed her. It was that quick, Mr. President. Devin started her drug journey with a prescription of opiates, a prescription because she had been injured and she had an ailment and she had pain. When those pills weren't enough anymore, heroin stepped in. Heroin steps in every time. And the downward spiral began. It isn't just a problem kids from poor neighborhoods who get hooked. You know, everybody thinks it's because of the economic downturn. That's a part of it, but not all of it. Our granddaughter came from a stable, affectionate, upper middle class home. Even though her parents tried their best to save her with countless sleepless nights, multiple trips to rehab, tough love, and loving persuasion, that drug won the battle. Now we are not even allowed to grieve. We must also contend with the many forms of our anger. Impatience with Devin for not being stronger. Rage at those who sold her the drugs. Frustration with the authorities for not doing more to stop the trafficking or establishing more treatment centers. And self-recrimination for maybe not doing enough. We also are trying to cope with the guilt of feeling relief that her hell has finally ended. There's nothing more that we can do for her now, no more treatments that we can try. Can you imagine living with that? You've tried everything, and then finally when the end comes like that, you have a feeling of relief, and then you feel remorseful for that. Can you imagine grandparents going through this? She says finally, she's just gone. She's gone. And people now are coming out. Before, Mr. President, people didn't want to tell me. They were afraid. They had a son or a daughter in rehab, and they thought that would be a scourge on their family. They didn't want to be embarrassed, so we never knew about it. It was a silent killer going on. And then you saw a young person. You ever go and through the paper and obituaries, you see a young person, doesn't give the cause of death, but you pretty much can figure it out anymore? People are now saying, if we don't come out of the closet and talk about this, we're not going to fix it. There's a lot that needs to be done. I'm going to read you a better story now. It had a happy ending. I'm going to read Chelsea's story, which I've read before you. This is a young girl from Boone County, West Virginia. This young girl had started using drugs when she was 12 years old. 12 years old. Anything and everything could happen to a human being coming. Her dad was mayor of the town. Was mayor. She's gone through everything. Hit bottom as far as bottom could be. The person she went through drug court and drug rehab with died. Didn't get out. She made it. I'm going to read hers now so you see a happy ending to something. And most of these stories are about the pain and heartache associated with opiate abuse. But this story here, Chelsea's story, is a little different. I read Chelsea Carter's powerful story on how she has overcome her opiate addiction on the Senate floor in February. And today, I'm proud to say, she has just received her master's degree in social work from Concord University. After being addicted to drugs since she was 12 years old by a neighborhood friend, she says, I decided to go back to school and teach others what I have been taught my whole life. I received my bachelor's degree from West Virginia University in the art of psychology in May of 2013. And last Saturday, May the 7th, 2016, I graduated with my master's in social work from Concord University. I'm currently working on my alcohol and drug counseling licensure. And also myself and 7 other people are in the process of opening up sober living home in Danville, West Virginia, her home area, called the Hero House. They get no funding. They don't qualify for any Medicaid, Medicare, nothing. It's all going to be on the love and the kindness of what they're going to do. Also, with the record she has now, because she was for grand larceny, she has a felony record. It'd be hard for her to get a job. And we're taking a person now with a master's degree out of the workforce. It's unbelievable. So she says, I currently work for Appalachian Health Services as an addiction therapist. They went beyond that and hired her anyway. Most people won't. But my dream is to one day open my own inpatient treatment facility and help other people who are just like me. A message I would like people to know is that recovery is possible, but you have to be willing to work at it. It's a lot easier to go out on the streets and buy drugs instead of trying to change your life. But the one thing that recovery gives you that the drugs will never is your life back. She says, I am living proof that if you want something bad enough, you can change. We've got to give them hope. We've got to give them reasons. We've got to give them ability to get back in the mainstream. This is the best example of what can be done if we make investments. And the investments we make is investments in human capital in the United States of America and the spirit of America. This is what we're doing. And I would hope all of you, for the many stories I read that have such horrible endings, this is one that has a happy ending, can help many, many people. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.